Hello, my name is Franklin Bartol, and I'm a master's student at University College London and Yale. Now, the holidays are coming up, and that is my favorite time to bake. However, a lot of the times we're eating big holiday meals, and we don't always want to finish it off with a really heavy, rich dessert. And that's why this chocolate cake recipe I'm going to show you is perfect, because it has all the taste, but we've substituted some of the traditional heavy cake ingredients for some lighter, healthier ones. Now I'm going to show you the texture of this cake because you will not believe me when I say that there's no flour and no butter in this cake. That means that it's gluten-free and it's dairy-free, so it's a perfect thing to serve at holiday celebrations where some people might have those food restrictions, and they will thank you for it because you cannot tell that it is flourless or butterless. Now how do we pull that off? Well, instead of flour, we use beans. I recommend black beans for this recipe, but you could also use chickpeas or lentils. And now mashed up beans or lentils are a really common substitute for flour when baking because they bind together all the ingredients really well, they provide a really rich, moist texture to the cake, and you can't taste them, and you're adding a lot of protein and fiber, so it's a really healthy substitute for flour. So you just want to mash up the black beans. I used 15 ounces or 425 grams of already cooked beans. So you can easily get them from a can, rinse and drain them, and mash them up. You can use a fork, or if you have a food processor, it goes a lot faster, but a fork is fine. And you get a texture kind of like that at the end, all mashed up, and it's okay if there are some skins of the black beans in there, you'll see that. That's okay, it blends really well in the final cake. So when you're baking, it really helps to mix all of your wet ingredients together in one bowl, all of your dry ingredients in another bowl, and then slowly add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients and just beat it really well with a fork, or you can use something like this, a handheld mixer. Either is fine. The fork takes longer, but you just need some patience and it works. So I'll show you the other wet ingredients we need. So in a big bowl, add in your mashed up black beans, and add in 5 eggs, already whisked really well, just like this. 5 eggs, that's a lot of protein for this recipe, so really good. And then at this point, a lot of cake recipes call for a lot of butter, but you've probably had a lot of butter in your other holiday food, so a healthy substitute for butter is actually prune puree. Now prune puree really effectively binds together all of the ingredients, and it adds a lot of moisture, and you cannot tell that there are prunes in this cake. Can't tell at all, it just makes a really moist cake. And prune puree you can find at any grocery store in the baby food aisle because babies love this stuff. So they're often sold in these little containers like this. You just need 6 tablespoons of the prune puree. If you really can't get to the store or you can't find it, you can always use butter instead, 6 tablespoons. It's a 1-to-1 substitution, so anytime you're baking you want to omit butter, this is a really easy way to do it, prune puree. Also adds a bit of natural sugar and some fiber to the recipe. So your last wet ingredient, if you have some and you want to use it, is vanilla extract. You could add a teaspoon. Now for your dry ingredients. You want to mix those together separately really well before you add them to the wet ingredients. So this is a very chocolatey cake. So we're going to use 7 tablespoons of just pure cocoa powder. That's all it is. Very chocolatey cake. And now we need the cake to rise, so we have to add our baking powder, a couple teaspoons of that. Lastly, we want to sweeten the cake, so 2/3 a cup of sugar, or if you want to go with just natural sugars, you can use 1/2 cup of honey. Either will do perfectly fine. So then you slowly add the dry ingredients to the bowl of wet ingredients. Beat it really well with a handheld mixer or your fork, and I'm going to show you what the raw batter looks like. Now you're going to have a lot more than this, a big bowl of it, but this is just an example. It's pretty runny. Everything's mixed together really well. You might see some bits of the black bean, the skin around the black beans, but that's fine because it blends really well as it cooks. So all of the batter should fill up a cake pan that's about 9 inches or 23 centimeters in diameter like this one. So make sure it's sprayed so the batter doesn't stick when it cooks. And a big cake pan like this should take about 40 to 45 minutes to cook at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or about 165 degrees Celsius. Now if you have smaller pans or if you want to use cupcake pans, that's fine too, it just might cook faster. So insert a fork or a knife in the center of the cake or the cupcake to see if it's done. If the knife comes out and there's wet batter on it, that means it needs to cook a little longer. If it's dry with maybe just a few crumbs, that means the cake is done and ready to come out. Now before you put the cake in the oven, you can add whatever toppings you like to mix it up a little bit. So on my cake, I added some coconut flakes and they toasted in the oven, so they're delicious. You can also add some slices of almonds or some peanuts or some pieces of dark chocolate. Really, this is where you can be creative. And I've served this cake at so many dinner parties and everybody asks for the recipe. Nobody can ever guess that there are black beans or prunes in this cake. So I dare you to try this at your next holiday celebration and ask people if they can guess what the secret ingredients are.